Hello and welcome to Butlin's Holiday Camp Filey in 1967. This 50-year-old picture has dust, scratches and colour staining that we want to deal with as quickly as possible, restoring the picture in Photoshop Elements. I'm using version 10, but the tools that I'll demonstrate are in every version of Elements, as well as in full Photoshop and in the GIMP. Let's begin by thinking about global changes we might want to make. I like the colours of 1960s photos, so I don't want to change anything globally, although in a few minutes I'm going to come on to this nasty yellowy green stain around this edge. What I will do is just adjust the levels a little bit. The contrast is fairly good, but if we go to the Enhance menu, Adjust Lighting and Levels, then we can see the histogram of the picture. Black is down here, and then the height shows the number of values there is of every level up to white. This big bump here is due to the skating rink, which takes up a lot of the picture, and I'd like that to be just a little bit lighter. So I'm going to grab this central caret in the histogram, pull it to the left a little bit, and that will make that area lighter and perhaps make the subject, who is this guy just here, stand out a little bit more. Okay, now let's deal with the colour problem first. Because it's not over the full picture, I am going to use the technique that we also use for dust and scratches, which is to create another layer, do most of our work on that layer, and then we can think about getting back the original in those places where it already was okay. Let me show you what I mean. We'll duplicate this background layer by going to the Layer menu, Duplicate Layer, OK, and we see that two copies of the picture overlaid, one on top of the other, are here. This one is currently highlighted, so that's the one we're going to be working on to begin with. Now, this kind of colour staining is something that there's a quick way to get rid of very often in Photoshop. This tool works surprisingly well. Let me show you. Enhancement, Adjust Colour, Adjust Hue Saturation. Here's a dialog box, and we can change the hue, saturation and lightness of every colour in the picture, or just a restricted set. Now if I go down to yellows, because the problem I have in this picture is yellows and greens, what I can do to see where the yellows are is to put the saturation way up, like this. Unsurprisingly, this building at the back has got a lot of yellow in it. It looked sandy coloured to start with, as did this path at the side. But see all this yellow in the rink here? Surely that should just be grey. That seems to be rogue yellow. Let's just have a look at the greens as well. I'll put that back down to 0 for a moment and look at greens. Pushing that up, far fewer greens than anything else. But in fact, you see there's an awful lot here as well. Lots of dots of green. So how do we deal with that? Well, we adjust it. The simplest way is simply to put the saturation down as far as it will go. That's the greens. Let's do the same thing with the yellows. So we're back at yellow. Remember, yellows are all over the place, but let's put the saturation down to 0. And you see this makes the rink much more grey than it used to be. Problem is, it's taken the yellows and greens out of everything else too. But we have layers and we have an eraser, and we're going to use the eraser now to get back the colours in the parts of the picture where we want it. There are other ways to select regions and to remove them, to let one thing show through another in Photoshop. But the best thing to do is to practice with a particular set of tools until you get very familiar so that it's at your fingertips. For me, that's using this method of several layers, work on the top layer, and then erase. So I'm going to demonstrate that. For the nice thing about it is that it's a general purpose way of working. This is the eraser. I just picked it from the left-hand menu here. I'm going to increase its size by using the close square bracket key on the keyboard, and then I'm going to drag it across the places I want to bring back. Just to show you how the yellow comes back, I'm going to run it over the building first. Let's do that. Click down, and you see the yellow coming back a little bit. Well, we actually want to do that everywhere except for on the grey of the rink. So the easiest way to do that is to turn off the background picture so that we can see in the checkerboard pattern where we've erased. And now I'm going to make the eraser even bigger to do all this area at the top to start with. And then, because we've got to be a bit more careful coming down the side here, I'll make the eraser that bit smaller here. And we want to come across this fence here. We actually want to get the boy's face and clothing, hands and feet, or legs I should say as well. So we'll go back to that. Now you see, I've not done this perfectly. And that probably doesn't matter because all that we're doing here is an adjustment of some aberrational colour. So the rough edges are probably not going to show when we combine the unchanged layer and the changed layer, because the changes were not that great anyway. So we can be fairly approximate in this painting, but I do want to do it because I know that some of the colour has been taken away from these clothing, particularly the shorts and the skin tones. So let's just finish that off like so, and then we can put back the background. There it is, and now we have all the yellowy colours still in the background, but this is nice and grey now. Let's consolidate that change by combining the two layers. So we go to the layer menu and flatten images. That folds them together. Now what we want to do is to tackle the noise, the dust and scratches, and we follow the same workflow as usually for this, which means working on a top layer. So back again to layer, duplicate layer, OK. We're going to work on this top layer. For removing noise, we can begin with the automated filters that Elements provides us with. So zooming in a little bit to see some of the noise, let's select Filter, Noise, Dust and Scratches. Now, this has two sliders. I always leave the radius one down at 1. Threshold, well, that says how big a difference has to be before it's detected as a scratch or a bit of dust that has to be filled in. If you have this very high, it doesn't get rid of anything. If you have it very low, what it does is it smooths out all the very low level noise variation too. Now, in an older picture like this, there is quite a lot of grain, so I tend to leave this down about 10, maybe even a little bit lower. For a more recent picture, I would have it in the 20s probably. So let's apply that, and that's got rid of a lot of the little noise points and a lot of the tiny 1 pixel hairs, but there's still a lot left behind. So this is where we now have to start using by hand the tools on the left-hand menu. The healing brush tool for spots and dragging over places where there's an extended scratch, and sometimes we might use the clone stamp tool for painting over using a nearby piece of the background. For example, here's a nasty scratch. We could use the clone stamp tool by selecting a point nearby. I'm going to make the brush a little bit bigger using close square bracket again. I press down the Alt key and click to define the source, and then I can drag over like that. Now I use the clone stamp tool quite a lot, so I might use it just here as well. With the same offset, it does fairly well at getting rid of these scratches on the playground. That one didn't work so well, but that's okay. You can always undo, and you can always select a different offset, a different point to paint from, and there we go. So we can dot over these various pieces of noise. Some of these white lines on the rink are probably due to abrasions on the surface. They're probably real, but some of them I think do need to be removed. Now, as well as the clone stamp tool, we have the spot healing brush. In the sky is nice and fluffy, and you can really be quite cavalier. I tend to use the spot healing brush for something like this, drag it over areas where there are clearly standout marks, things that aren't as nice and fluffy as the rest of the sky. And in that way, you see, we can make everything soft and pleasant looking. There's another one, so let's just get over that and fuzzify that. So we take care to pick out all those places where there's a standout point. There are still one or two bits of noise that we've got to be a bit more careful about, like that one just there. There may be, that looks like a little bit of noise there. And this purple area here in this person's forehead is a bit tricky too. I'm actually going to clone a little bit of skin from elsewhere, probably down here, and use that just to overpaint that colour there. Now, we can carry on and pick up any remaining bits of noise, but I think we're nearly done on that now. What I want to do is to get back to detail that our filtering might have removed. This guy here is the subject of the picture. You might recognize him. The hairstyle hasn't changed in 50 years. If we turn off the background copy, you can see that our filtering has got rid of noise, of course, but there are some details in this face that it's removed as well. We'd like to get them back. So what we do is go down to our eraser and very carefully around those facial features, we just try to bring back the highlight on the nose, highlights under the glasses like so. So that does look like a noise point, but actually I think it probably comes from the glasses. So we have something like that there. We can work on other places too where there may be extra features to bring back, particularly something like these letters. Now, if we turn off and on the foreground, you can see they're much easier to read in the original, but much noisier too. I find that just dabbing around places like this, just to bring back some of the texture, really helps in when you then look at the finished version. The words are readable, and because there are the sharp edges in here, you tend not to notice the noise so much. Now, of course, there are other sharp edges around. There are the window panes that we might want to work on too. But I think the only other one I'm going to come to is probably the flag at the top of the picture. That's obviously something that is very recognizable, and if we turn off the foreground, you can see we've lost detail there. So again, I'm just going to dab some detail back in the flag, and also I think run down the flagpole. There we are, make that a little bit darker. So we could continue with bringing back some more of the detail, but let's stick with this and finish with an enhancement stage, a sharpening stage. Now that can be risky because it is quite grainy, but I think it will give us a sharpening that will be quite pleasing to the eye. So let's consolidate our layers, layer, flatten image, back to a single layer, and now enhance and unsharp mask to sharpen. Just exploring the picture. Well, the highlight that we saw under the eye has been made even sharper now, but I think I'm going to get rid of that with the spot healing brush actually, because it does look as though it's noise, whether or not it truly is a highlight. But you see that with the enhancement we're doing there, things have sharpened up a little bit. Yes, I'm going to take that little green spot away. It's just too distracting. Okay. So there we go. We have something that has removed the main forms of aberration, and that can now be saved as a JPEG.